Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast, the place where you improve your English with natural conversations. I'm Jason, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Julia. Hey, Julia!
Hey Jason, hi everyone. I'm so excited about today's topic because it's something that almost every English learner struggles with, translating in their head before speaking.
Yes, if you've ever found yourself thinking in your native language, translating each word, and then trying to speak in English, you're not alone. This is a super common problem for English learners, and today we're going to help you break this habit and start thinking directly in English.
That's right. And Jason, I remember when I first started learning English, I would always translate from my native language before speaking. It made me slow, nervous, and sometimes my sentences didn't even make sense.
Exactly. And the problem is, the more we translate, the harder it becomes to speak naturally. But don't worry. By the end of this episode, you'll have practical techniques to stop translating and start speaking smoothly.
Yes, and we'll also talk about how the brain learns a new language and what you can do every day to start thinking in English like a native speaker.
So if you're ready to improve your English fluency and confidence, stay with us till the end. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. All right. Now, let's talk about the big problem, translating in your head before speaking. If you're always thinking in your native language first and then translating to English, it can slow you down and make speaking feel frustrating.
Yes, and it's something so many learners struggle with. Imagine this. You're in a conversation and someone asks you a simple question in English like, "What do you do for work?" Instead of answering right away, your brain goes, "Okay, let me translate this question into my native language. Think of a response, translate it back into English, and then speak." By the time you figure out what to say, the conversation has already moved on.
Exactly. And this delay makes you feel nervous, self-conscious, and sometimes even afraid to speak at all. That's why a lot of learners hesitate and lose confidence.
And the truth is, translating doesn't always work because different languages have different sentence structures, grammar rules, and ways of expressing ideas. If you try to translate word for word, your sentence might not make sense in English.
Right. Let's take a quick example. In English, we say, "I'm 25 years old." But if you translate directly from some languages, you might end up saying, "I have 25 years, which sounds incorrect in English.
That's such a good example. Another one is with greetings. In English, we say, "How are you?" But in other languages, the direct translation might be something like, "How is your condition today?" which sounds unnatural in English.
That's why translating in your head doesn't just make you slower. It can also lead to awkward or incorrect sentences.
And another big problem? It makes English feel like a second step instead of your natural way of communicating. If you always think in your native language first, your brain never gets used to forming sentences in English automatically.
Exactly. And here's the thing. When native English speakers talk, they don't translate anything. They just think in English and speak naturally. That's what we want you to do, too.
Yes, so if you feel stuck translating all the time, don't worry. You can train your brain to think in English, and that's exactly what we'll teach you in the next section.
So now that we understand why translating in your head slows you down, let's talk about how the brain actually learns a new language. This will help you understand why thinking in English is so important.
Yes, and the first thing to know is that our brain learns languages differently from how we learn other subjects. When we learn history or science, we memorize facts and information. But when we learn a language, we need to develop a skill, just like learning to play a musical instrument or a sport.
Exactly. And when you first start learning English, your brain is like a child learning to walk. At first, it feels awkward and difficult, but with practice, it becomes automatic.
That's a great way to put it. And here's something interesting. Your brain actually has two ways of learning a language: passive learning and active learning.
Right. Passive learning is when you listen to English conversations, watch English movies, or read in English. Even if you're not speaking, your brain is still absorbing the language.
And then there's active learning, which is when you actually use the language, speaking, writing, and thinking in English.
And here's the key. If you only learn English passively, like by watching videos or listening to podcasts, but you never practice thinking or speaking in English, your brain won't develop the ability to form sentences quickly.
Yes, it's like watching someone play the guitar all day but never picking up the guitar yourself. You won't become a guitar player just by watching. You have to practice.
Exactly. And the more you actively use English without translating, the faster your brain will get used to thinking in English. That's because your brain forms neural connections every time you practice.
And the best part? Your brain is designed to learn languages naturally. That's how babies learn, by listening, imitating, and repeating, not by translating.
That's right. So instead of thinking, "How do I translate this sentence?" try thinking, "How would an English speaker say this?" That shift in mindset will help you become fluent much faster.
And don't worry if it feels difficult at first. It takes time, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. And in the next section, we're going to give you practical steps to stop translating and start thinking in English.
All right. Now it's time for the most important part. How can you stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English? We've got some simple, powerful steps to help you make this shift.
Yes, and remember, this is a process. It won't happen overnight, but if you practice these steps consistently, you'll notice a big difference in how naturally you speak English.
Okay, let's get into it. Step 1. Start with simple words and phrases.
Yes, if you're always translating full sentences in your head, that can be overwhelming. Instead, train your brain by thinking of single words in English first. For example, if you see a tree, don't think of the word in your native language. Just think tree in English.
That's a great tip. And once you're comfortable with words, move to short phrases. Like, when you wake up, instead of thinking, "I need to brush my teeth" in your language, think it in English.
Yes, and that leads us to step 2, talk to yourself in English.
Exactly. This might sound funny, but it's a great way to train your brain. Throughout your day, describe what you're doing in English. "I'm making coffee." "I need to find my keys." "It's a sunny day." The more you do this, the more natural it becomes.
Yes, and don't worry about making mistakes. This is just for you. The goal is to get your brain used to thinking in English instead of translating.
That's so important. Now, step 3, use images instead of words from your native language.
Oh, I love this one. Instead of translating words in your head, try connecting them directly to images or ideas. For example, when you hear the word apple, don't think of the translation. Just imagine a red, juicy apple in your mind.
Yes, this is how native speakers think. They don't translate. They just associate words with images and meanings.
Okay, let's move to step 4. Listen and repeat.
This is a great technique. Listen to English podcasts, TV shows, or conversations, and repeat sentences out loud. You don't have to repeat everything. Just focus on key phrases.
Right. For example, if you hear someone say, "That's a great idea," pause and repeat it exactly the same way. This helps your brain get used to natural English sentence patterns.
That's a great tip. And finally, step 5, practice speaking with others.
Yes, even if you don't have an English-speaking partner, you can join online communities, language exchange groups, or even practice with AI chat tools. The key is to use English as much as possible.
Absolutely. And remember, fluency is not about perfection. It's about confidence. The more you practice thinking in English, the easier and faster it will become.
So don't be afraid, start small, be consistent, and soon you'll notice that you don't need to translate anymore. You'll just speak naturally.
All right, now that we've covered steps to stop translating, let's talk about something really important: the role of listening and speaking practice.
Yes, a lot of learners focus only on reading and writing, but if you want to think in English and speak fluently, listening and speaking practice are absolutely necessary.
That's right. So, let's start with listening practice. Listening is one of the best ways to train your brain to think in English naturally.
Exactly. When you listen to English regularly, your brain starts recognizing sentence structures, word patterns, and pronunciation. This helps you understand English without needing to translate.
And here's a great tip: listen actively, not passively. Don't just play English in the background. Really focus on it.
Yes. One way to do this is by using the pause and repeat technique. Listen to a sentence, pause, and repeat it out loud. This helps your brain connect the sounds to meaning instantly.
I love that. And another tip: shadowing. This means listening to a conversation and speaking along with it at the same time, like an echo. This improves pronunciation, rhythm, and fluency.
Great tip. Now, let's talk about speaking practice. A lot of learners think, I'll start speaking when I know more English, but that's the wrong approach.
Exactly. You don't wait until you're ready. You start speaking now and improve as you go. Speaking is a skill, and the more you practice, the better you get.
That's right, and here's a simple way to practice. Speak out loud every day. Even if you're alone, describe what you're doing in English.
Yes, and try having mini conversations with yourself. Ask a question in English, then answer it in English, like, "What did I do today?" "Oh, I went to the store and bought some fruit."
I love that. And don't forget to find speaking partners. Join an online language exchange, talk to friends, or even use AI chat tools to practice conversations.
Great point. And one last tip: don't be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and every mistake helps you improve.
Yes, so listen daily, speak daily, and soon you'll think in English naturally.
All right, now let's talk about the ultimate goal: thinking in English naturally. You've learned why translating in your head is a problem, how the brain learns a language, and steps to stop translating. But how do you train your brain to think directly in English?
Great question. Thinking in English is a habit, and just like any habit, it takes time and practice. But don't worry, we have some powerful techniques to help you.
Yes, let's start with Technique 1. Use English for everyday thoughts. Instead of thinking in your native language, try forming simple thoughts in English first.
Exactly. For example, if you're planning your day, think in English. Okay, first I'll make breakfast, then I'll go to work, and later I'll meet my friend. This helps your brain get comfortable with English sentence structures.
That's a great tip. Now, Technique 2. Label everything around you in English. Look at objects in your home, your workplace, or outside, and name them in English without translating.
Yes, if you see a chair, just think chair. Don't think of the translation. If you do this consistently, English words will come to your mind naturally.
Absolutely. Now, Here's technique 3. Have an inner monologue in English. Talk to yourself in your head in English throughout the day.
Oh, I love this one. Imagine you're narrating your own life, like a movie. I'm walking to the bus stop. It's a cold morning. I need to buy coffee later. This forces your brain to process English directly.
That's such a fun way to practice. And here's another great method. Technique 4. Think in pictures, not words.
Oh yes, this means instead of translating words, you connect them directly to images. When you hear dog, don't think of the word in your language. Just imagine a dog in your mind.
Right. This is how native speakers think. They don't translate. They just associate words with ideas and feelings.
Now, let's talk about technique 5, speak first, fix later. Don't worry about grammar too much at the beginning. Just try to express your thoughts in English.
Exactly. A lot of learners hesitate because they're afraid of mistakes. But the more you try to think in English, the better you'll get. Fluency is about confidence, not perfection.
That's so true. And if you follow these techniques daily, you'll soon notice that you no longer need to translate. You'll just think in English naturally.
Now, let's talk about something that stops many learners from speaking English. Fear. A lot of people know English but feel nervous or afraid to speak. Julia, why do you think this happens?
Great question, Jason. Fear of speaking comes from different reasons. Some people are afraid of making mistakes, some worry about their accent, and others feel shy because they think their English is not good enough.
Exactly. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is normal. Even native speakers make mistakes. The key is to see mistakes as part of learning, not as failures.
Yes, and actually, making mistakes helps you learn faster because you can correct them and improve. So, instead of being afraid, think of every conversation as practice.
That's a great mindset. But what if someone feels really nervous when they try to speak? What can they do?
Good question. Here's tip 1, start small. You don't have to speak in long, complicated sentences. Begin with short sentences and simple words.
That's a great tip. Even saying things like, I like coffee or the weather is nice today helps build confidence. And here's tip practice with yourself first.
Oh, I love this one. You can talk to yourself in the mirror or record your voice. This helps you get used to hearing yourself speak in English without pressure.
Yes, and if you record yourself, you can listen to it later and see where you can improve. Now, let's talk about tip number 3. Speak with friendly people.
That's important. Find people who support you, language exchange partners, online communities, or even friends who want to practice too. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll feel.
Absolutely. And here's a fun one. Tip 4, pretend to be confident, even if you're not.
Oh yes, this is called fake it till you make it. If you speak with energy and a smile, you'll start feeling more confident naturally.
That's a great trick. And one final tip. Tip 5, focus on communication, not perfection. The goal is to express yourself, not to be 100% correct all the time.
Yes, people will understand you even if you make small mistakes. What's important is getting your message across. So don't let fear stop you. Just start speaking.
Wow, Julia! We covered so many important points today about stopping translation and thinking in English. Let's do a quick summary for our listeners.
Great idea. First, we talked about why translating in your head is a problem. It slows you down and makes conversations harder.
Then, we explained how the brain learns a new language and why direct thinking in English is the key to fluency.
Right. After that, we gave practical steps to stop translating, like using English for daily thoughts, labeling objects, and creating an inner monologue.
We also talked about the importance of listening and speaking practice, because the more you hear and use English, the easier it becomes to think in English.
Yes, and we gave powerful techniques to train your brain to think naturally in English, like thinking in pictures, using simple sentences, and speaking first without worrying about mistakes.
And let's not forget one of the biggest challenges, overcoming the fear of speaking. We shared tips like starting small, practicing with yourself, finding supportive people, and focusing on communication, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, fluency is not about knowing every word. It's about confidence and practice. The more you practice these techniques, the easier it will be to think and speak in English.
So, to everyone listening, don't wait for perfect English. Start speaking, start thinking in English, and enjoy the learning process.
That's right. And if you found this episode helpful, subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends who want to improve their English.
Yes, and let us know in the comments. What's your biggest challenge in thinking in English? We'd love to help.
Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and with me, as always, is the amazing co-host, Julia. How are you today, Julia?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing great, thanks. Really excited about today's topic because it's something many English learners struggle with.
Absolutely. Today, we're talking about something that's super important, but often really hard staying consistent when learning English.
Yes, consistency is like the secret sauce for success in any learning process. But honestly, it's easier said than done. Many learners start strong, but then find it tough to keep up regularly.
Right. I think we've all been there, whether it's losing motivation, feeling overwhelmed, or just life getting in the way. So if you've ever struggled to stay consistent with your English practice, you're definitely not alone.
And that's exactly why we want to dive into this topic today, to help you understand why consistency matters so much and share practical tips to help you stick with your English learning journey.
We'll also talk about common challenges that cause inconsistency and how you can overcome them. Plus, we'll share some motivation to keep you going, even when things get tough.
So whether you're learning English for school, work, travel, or just for fun, this episode is for you. By the end, we hope you'll feel inspired and ready to build a consistent English learning habit.
Perfect. So, grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Stay tuned. All right, Julia, let's start by really understanding what we mean by consistency. It sounds simple, but I think a lot of learners might get confused about it. How would you explain consistency when it comes to learning English?
Good question, Jason. To me, consistency means practicing English regularly and making it a habit. Not necessarily for hours every day, but showing up every day or almost every day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
That makes sense. So, it's more about doing something regularly than doing a lot all at once.
Exactly. It's about creating a routine. For example, studying 10 or 15 minutes every day can be much more effective than cramming for 3 hours once a week.
I love that. I think sometimes people get stuck thinking they have to be perfect or spend a lot of time. And if they don't, they feel like giving up.
Yes, that's a common myth, that consistency means being perfect every day. But really it's about being steady over time. Even small imperfect efforts add up.
So consistency is kind of like putting money in a savings account little by little, rather than one big deposit and then nothing.
Exactly. Over time, those small deposits of effort build up your skills, your confidence, and your fluency.
And why do you think consistency is so important for English learners specifically?
Well, language learning is a gradual process. Your brain needs time and repeated exposure to remember vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Without consistency, it's easy to forget what you've learned.
True. I've noticed when I take a long break from practicing a language, I lose a lot of what I gained.
Right. Consistency helps with long-term memory and makes learning more natural. Plus, it helps reduce stress because you're not trying to learn everything at once.
So, the big takeaway is consistent, steady practice beats intense but irregular study.
Yes, and building this habit can also make learning part of your daily life, not just a chore.
That's a great mindset. Okay, now that we know what consistency is and why it matters, let's explore why people find it hard to keep it up. All right, Julia, now that we've talked about what consistency really means and why it's so important, let's get real. Why do so many people struggle with staying consistent in their English learning?
Great question. From my experience, there are a few big reasons. The first one that comes to mind is lack of motivation. It's hard to stay motivated every day, especially when progress feels slow.
Yes, motivation is like a battery. Sometimes it's full, sometimes it's almost empty. And if your motivation runs out, it's tough to keep going.
Exactly. Another reason is distractions. Life is busy, right? Work, family, social media, other responsibilities. It's easy for English practice to fall to the bottom of the list.
Totally. I think many learners underestimate how much time they actually spend on distractions, and then they wonder why they don't have time to study.
Right. And there's also the problem of unrealistic goals. Some people expect to become fluent super fast, so when they don't see immediate results, they get discouraged and stop.
Oh, that's a big one. I've seen learners set these huge goals like, I'll learn 1,000 words in a month, and when they don't hit that, they feel like failures.
Exactly. That kind of pressure can be overwhelming and lead to burnout.
Speaking of burnout, I think that's another big reason. Sometimes learners push themselves too hard for too long and then just burn out and take long breaks.
Yes, burnout is real. Consistency isn't about working nonstop, it's about pacing yourself so you don't get exhausted.
I also think some people struggle because they don't have a clear plan or structure. Without a plan, it's easy to feel lost and give up.
Good point. When you don't know what to study or how to practice, it can feel overwhelming, and that kills motivation.
And lastly, I'd add fear of making mistakes or lack of confidence. Sometimes learners avoid practicing because they're afraid to speak or write incorrectly.
That's a big barrier, but honestly, making mistakes is part of learning. Avoiding practice just slows down progress.
So to summarize, the main reasons are lack of motivation, distractions, unrealistic goals, burnout, no clear plan, and fear of mistakes.
Yes, and the good news is that understanding these challenges is the first step to overcoming them.
Absolutely. In the next section, we'll talk about practical tips to help build and maintain your consistency, even when these challenges pop up. All right, Julia, now that we've talked about why staying consistent is tough, let's get into the good stuff, some practical tips that can really help our listeners build and keep that consistency going.
Yes, let's do it. The first and most important tip I always recommend is setting small, realistic goals. Instead of saying, I want to master English in 3 months, try something like, I'll practice English for 10 minutes every day.
That's a great point. Small goals feel manageable and less intimidating. When you achieve them, it boosts your confidence and motivates you to keep going.
Exactly. Breaking your learning into bite-sized pieces makes it easier to fit into your daily routine, like practicing one new word or phrase each day or listening to a short podcast episode.
And that leads to my next tip, building a habit by linking your English practice to something you already do every day. For example, you could practice right after brushing your teeth or during your commute.
Yes, this is called habit stacking. When you attach a new habit to an existing one, it's easier to remember and do it consistently.
Another helpful tip is to use reminders and trackers. You can set phone alarms, use habit tracking apps, or even a simple calendar where you check off each day you practice.
Tracking your progress is motivating because you can see how far you've come. Plus, it makes it harder to skip practice when you want to keep your streak going.
One thing I always tell learners is to mix up your learning activities to keep things fun and interesting. Instead of just studying grammar or vocabulary, try watching movies, listening to music, chatting with friends, or playing language games.
That's so important. When learning becomes enjoyable, it's easier to stay consistent because it doesn't feel like a boring task.
Also, don't forget to be kind to yourself. It's okay to miss a day or have an off day. Consistency isn't about perfection, it's about coming back after a break.
Yes, self-compassion is key. If you slip up, just restart the next day without guilt. The important thing is to keep moving forward.
Another tip is to set clear priorities and manage your time. Sometimes people struggle because they don't make their English learning a priority in their schedule.
Right. Even busy people can find 10 minutes if they make it a priority. Planning your practice time like an appointment helps a lot.
And finally, don't forget the power of accountability. Tell a friend or join a study group so someone can encourage you and keep you motivated.
Yes, having someone to practice with or check in with can really boost your consistency. It creates a sense of responsibility.
So, to recap, some of the key tips are setting small goals, habit stacking, using reminders, mixing activities, being kind to yourself, managing time, and finding accountability.
And remember, consistency is a journey. It takes time, patience, and practice. But with these strategies, it's definitely possible to make English learning a regular part of your life.
Absolutely. Keep trying and don't give up. The results will come. Julia, after all these tips, I think it's really important to remind our listeners that staying consistent isn't always easy, but it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely, Jason. Learning any language, especially English, takes time and effort. There will be ups and downs, but every little step forward counts.
I love this quote I heard recently. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. It really fits perfectly with consistency, don't you think?
Yes, that's so true. Sometimes it's the small daily practices that make the biggest difference over time. Progress might be slow, but it's still progress.
And here's another thing. It's okay if you don't feel motivated every day. Motivation can come and go, but what keeps you going is discipline and your commitment to your goals.
Right? Think of consistency as showing up for yourself. Even on days when you don't feel like practicing, if you still do something small, you're winning.
I also want to encourage listeners to change how they think about mistakes and setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, try to see them as part of the learning process.
Exactly. Every mistake is a chance to learn something new. Don't be afraid of making errors. It means you're trying, and that's how growth happens.
Another thing I find helpful is to celebrate small wins. Did you learn a new word today? Did you listen to an English podcast for 5 minutes? That's a win.
Celebrating progress, no matter how small, boosts your confidence and helps keep you motivated.
And remember, consistency isn't about being perfect, it's about being persistent. It's about choosing to keep going, even when it's hard.
Yes, so to all our listeners out there, keep pushing forward, be patient with yourself, and trust the process. Your hard work will pay off.
We believe in you. Keep practicing, and remember every day you practice English, you're getting better and closer to your goals. Julia, Sometimes we get questions from our listeners about consistency. Maybe we can share a couple today and talk through some real-life scenarios?
Great idea, Jason. It always helps to hear examples and how to handle them. Do you have a question to start with?
Yes. One listener asked, I want to practice English every day, but I keep forgetting. How can I remember to study consistently? What would you say to that?
That's a common problem. My advice is to create reminders like setting an alarm on your phone at the same time every day or attaching your practice to a daily habit, like having breakfast or before bed.
Right. And making your practice visible helps too. For example, leaving your English book or notebook somewhere, you'll see it often.
Exactly. The goal is to make it hard to forget because it becomes part of your daily routine.
Here's another question. Sometimes I get discouraged because I don't see improvement. How can I stay motivated? What do you think?
That's tough, but it's normal. I suggest keeping a journal or log of your practice. Write down what you did and any small improvements you notice. When you look back, you'll see your progress.
Also, try to celebrate small wins, like understanding a new phrase or completing a lesson. Recognizing these moments keeps motivation alive.
And don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own pace.
Perfect advice. One last scenario, I'm busy with work and family. How can I find time to practice consistently?
Busy schedules are a challenge for many. My tip is to start small. Even 5 to 10 minutes daily can make a difference.
And try to use pockets of time, like listening to English podcasts during your commute or practicing vocabulary while cooking.
Yes, consistency is about fitting English into your life, not letting it take over your life.
Great points, Julia. I hope these answers help our listeners feel less alone and more prepared to tackle consistency.
Definitely. If you have questions, send them our way. We love hearing from you.
Well, Julia, we've covered a lot today about struggling to stay consistent and how to overcome those challenges.
Yes, we talked about what consistency really means, why it's so important, the common reasons people struggle, and practical tips to help build that consistency.
And we also shared some motivational insights to keep our listeners inspired. Plus, answered some common questions from real learners.
Exactly. The key message is this: consistency doesn't mean being perfect every day. It means making a commitment to show up for yourself regularly, even if it's just a little bit.
That's right. It's okay to have ups and downs. What matters is that you keep going and don't give up.
Remember, learning English is a journey, and every step you take moves you closer to your goal.
So, to all our listeners, keep practicing, stay patient, and believe in your ability to improve.
We believe in you too. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next episode of the English Learning Podcast.
Take care, everyone. Keep consistent and keep growing. And that wraps up today's episode on struggling to stay consistent with your English learning.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found some useful tips and motivation to help you stay on track.
If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends who are also learning English.
Yes, and if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover in future episodes, send us a message or comment below. We love hearing from you.
Also, follow us on social media for extra tips and updates about new episodes.
Remember, consistency is the key to success. Keep practicing every day, even if it's just a little bit.
Thanks again for joining us on the English Learning Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Stay motivated and keep learning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and today we have an exciting and very important topic for all English learners. Stop thinking, start talking. And of course, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Julia. How are you today, Julia?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing great, and I'm really excited about today's episode. This is a topic that so many English learners struggle with, overthinking before they speak. Instead of just talking, they keep worrying about grammar, pronunciation, or whether they're saying things correctly, and that stops them from improving.
Exactly. I hear this all the time. What if I make a mistake? What if people don't understand me? What if I sound silly? And because of this fear, many learners hesitate to speak English at all. But here's the truth. If you want to be fluent, you have to stop thinking too much and just start speaking.
That's right. The more you speak, the better you get. But how can you stop overthinking? How can you train yourself to speak more naturally? That's exactly what we'll be talking about today.
Yes! So, if you're someone who always hesitates before speaking English, stay with us until the end, because we'll be sharing some powerful tips, exercises, and mindset shifts that will help you speak English confidently without overthinking. Let's get started. So, before we get into solutions, let's first talk about the problem. Why do so many English learners overthink before speaking? What's stopping them from just talking naturally?
That's a great question, Jason. I think one of the biggest reasons is the fear of making mistakes. Many learners think, what if I say something wrong? Or what if people laugh at me? This fear makes them stay silent instead of trying to speak.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, native speakers make mistakes all the time. They mispronounce words. They forget grammar rules. They even make sentences that don't make perfect sense. But they keep talking. The difference is they don't overthink it.
Right. But English learners often feel pressure to speak perfectly, so they pause, they correct themselves too much, and in the end, they don't say anything at all. And that's a big problem because the only way to improve is to practice speaking.
That's true. Another reason why learners overthink is translating from their native language. Instead of forming sentences naturally in English, they try to think in their own language first, then translate it word by word. And of course, that takes time, so by the time they're ready to speak, the conversation has already moved on.
Yes, and that makes them feel frustrated, so they stop trying. Another common problem is lack of confidence. Some learners feel like their accent isn't good enough, or they don't have a big vocabulary, so they just stay quiet.
And that silence actually makes the problem worse. The less you speak, the more nervous you feel about speaking. It becomes a cycle of overthinking and avoiding English conversations.
Exactly. But the good news is you don't need to be perfect to speak English fluently. You just need to be confident and keep talking. And that's what we're going to help you with today.
Yes! Now that we understand the problem, let's talk about the solution. Why speaking without thinking too much is the key to fluency. All right, now that we understand why learners overthink, let's talk about the solution. Why speaking without thinking too much is the key to fluency. Julia, why is it so important for learners to stop overanalyzing and just start speaking?
Great question, Jason. The main reason is that fluency comes from practice, not perfection. The more you speak, the faster your brain gets at forming sentences naturally. If you always stop to think about grammar and vocabulary before you speak, you'll never develop the speed and confidence you need.
That's so true. Think about how babies learn to talk. They don't study grammar first, right? They just listen, repeat, and keep talking, even if they make mistakes. And over time, their speech improves naturally.
Exactly. And adults can learn the same way. Instead of waiting until your English is perfect, you should speak as much as possible even if you make mistakes. That's how real fluency develops.
Yes, I always tell learners, speak first, fix later. If you focus too much on correctness while speaking, it slows you down. But if you just talk and worry about small mistakes later, you'll sound much more natural.
That's a great tip. And another thing, native speakers don't care about small mistakes. If you communicate clearly, they will understand you. Nobody is judging you as much as you think.
Exactly. And actually, the more relaxed and natural you are when speaking, the more confident you sound. Confidence makes people listen to you more than perfect grammar does.
That's so true. And let's be honest, even native speakers make grammar mistakes, but they keep going. So learners should do the same. The more you practice speaking without stopping, the faster you'll improve.
Yes. So, now that we understand why thinking less and talking more is the key, let's move on to something even more exciting. Practical tips to help you stop overthinking and start speaking confidently. Now comes the most exciting part of today's episode. Practical tips to help you stop overthinking and start speaking. Julia, let's start with the first tip. What's one powerful way to stop hesitating and just talk?
One of the best ways is to think in English instead of translating from your native language. If you always translate in your head before speaking, it slows you down. But if you train your brain to think in English, words will come out faster and more naturally.
That's a fantastic tip. And a simple way to practice thinking in English is to describe your day in English. For example, if you're making coffee in the morning, say in your head, I am making coffee. The water is boiling. I am pouring it into my cup. It's a great way to make English a natural part of your daily thoughts.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Speak without worrying about grammar. Of course, grammar is important, but when you're having a conversation, communication is more important than correctness. Even if you make a mistake, people will still understand you.
That's so true. If you focus too much on grammar while speaking, you will pause a lot, and that makes you feel less confident. But if you just keep talking, your brain will naturally correct itself over time.
Right. And speaking of confidence, another great tip is to practice with yourself. Many learners say, I don't have a partner to practice with. But guess what? You can talk to yourself. Stand in front of a mirror and have a conversation, or describe what you see around you. This will help you get comfortable speaking out loud.
I love that. And here's another great technique. Use shadowing. This means listening to a native speaker and immediately repeating what they say, copying their pronunciation, rhythm, and speed. It's one of the fastest ways to sound more natural in English.
Yes, and you don't even need a teacher for this. Just find a YouTube video, a podcast, or even a movie and repeat after the speaker. This helps you stop thinking too much and just get used to speaking naturally.
That's a fantastic method. And here's another practical tip. Use simple sentences. Many learners hesitate because they try to make long, complicated sentences. But it's okay to use short, simple sentences. For example, instead of saying, I would like to discuss an important matter with you, just say, let's talk about something important. Simple is always better.
Absolutely. The goal is to keep the conversation going, not to sound perfect. And speaking of keeping the conversation going, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is part of the learning process. If you're too scared to make mistakes, you won't speak at all, and that's the biggest mistake of all.
Exactly. Mistakes are proof that you're learning. And that brings me to another tip. Immerse yourself in English every day. The more you listen to English, the easier it becomes to speak without thinking. So, listen to English podcasts, watch movies, and surround yourself with the language as much as possible.
Yes, the more English you hear, the more your brain absorbs natural speech patterns. And one final tip, set a speaking challenge for yourself. For example, challenge yourself to speak English for 5 minutes every day without stopping. Even if you don't know a word, just keep talking and find another way to express your idea.
I love that. The more you push yourself to speak, the more confident you become. So, let's quickly summarize these tips. Think in English. Don't worry about grammar. Practice with yourself. Use shadowing. Keep sentences simple. Embrace mistakes. Immerse yourself in English, and set a speaking challenge.
Exactly. If you follow these tips, you'll start speaking English naturally without overthinking. And now, let's wrap up with some final encouragement for our listeners.
All right. Now it's time for a fun and practical exercise. We want to challenge our listeners with a spontaneous speaking challenge. Julia, are you ready?
Absolutely. This is a great way to help learners stop overthinking and start talking. So, how does this challenge work, Jason?
Here's how it works. We'll give you a topic, and you have to speak about it for 30 seconds without stopping. No long pauses, no overthinking. Just keep talking. If you don't know a word, describe it in another way. The goal is to keep the conversation going.
That's right. And Jason, I think we should show an example first so our listeners can see how it's done. Let's do a quick role play.
Great idea. Okay, Julia, your topic is describe your morning routine. Go.
Okay. Every morning I wake up at 7 a.m. First, I stretch and drink a glass of water. Then I brush my teeth and take a shower. After that, I make a cup of coffee and eat breakfast, usually eggs and toast. I check my phone for messages and then get dressed. Finally, I prepare for my work or study. That's my morning routine.
Awesome. That was smooth and natural. You didn't stop, and even though it wasn't perfect, it was clear and confident. That's the goal.
Exactly. Now, Jason, your turn. Your topic is your favorite hobby. Go.
All right. My favorite hobby is playing the guitar. I love music, and playing the guitar helps me relax. I usually practice in the evening after work. I like learning new songs, and sometimes I play for my friends. Music makes me feel happy, and I enjoy improving my skills every day.
Perfect. You didn't stop and you kept going, even if you had to think of the next sentence. That's what we want our listeners to do.
Yes. Now, it's your turn, listeners. Here's your challenge. We'll give you 3 topics, and you must choose one and speak for 30 seconds without stopping.
Here are your topics. 1. Describe your favorite food. 2. Talk about your daily routine. 3. Describe a place you want to visit.
Pick one and start speaking. Don't stop. Don't overthink. Just talk. If you don't know a word, describe it in another way. Ready? Go.
Great job. Even if you struggled a little, that's okay. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Just remember, the goal is to speak, not to be perfect.
Exactly. So, keep practicing this challenge every day. You'll be amazed at how fast your confidence improves. Now, let's wrap up with some final encouragement. We've talked about practical techniques, but there's something even more important: your mindset. If you don't believe in yourself, no amount of practice will help. So, Julia, how can learners shift their mindset to become more confident speakers?
That's a great question, Jason. The first thing to remember is this: confidence comes from action, not from waiting to feel ready. Many learners think, I'll speak when I feel confident. But the truth is, you feel confident after you speak, not before. So start talking now.
Absolutely. And another mindset shift is to stop aiming for perfection. A lot of learners hesitate because they don't want to make mistakes. But here's a secret: even native speakers make mistakes. So, instead of thinking, I must be perfect, think, I must communicate.
Exactly. Communication is the goal, not perfection. And speaking of mistakes, change the way you see them. Instead of feeling embarrassed, see mistakes as proof that you are learning. If you never make mistakes, it means you're not pushing yourself enough.
I love that. And here's another mindset shift. Stop comparing yourself to others. Many learners say, "My friend speaks better than me," or "I'll never sound like a native speaker." But the only person you should compare yourself to is your past self. Are you better than you were yesterday? If yes, you're winning.
That's such an important point. And I'll add one more. Embrace discomfort. Speaking a new language feels uncomfortable at first, but that's normal. Confidence grows when you step out of your comfort zone. So, instead of avoiding English conversations, jump into them.
Absolutely. So let's summarize these mindset shifts. 1. Confidence comes from action. Speak now, not later. 2. Forget perfection. Focus on communication. 3. Mistakes are proof that you're learning, not failing. 4. Compare yourself only to your past self. 5. Embrace discomfort. Growth happens outside your comfort zone.
Yes, if you change your mindset, speaking English will feel much easier. Now, let's move to our final conclusion and wrap up today's episode.
Before we end today's episode, we want to leave you with some encouragement. Learning English is a journey, and sometimes it can feel frustrating. But remember this: every time you speak, you are improving. Even if you make mistakes, even if you don't sound perfect, you are growing.
Yes, and the most important thing is to keep going. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start speaking. The perfect moment is right now. If you keep waiting, you'll stay in the same place. But if you speak today, even just a little, you'll be further ahead tomorrow.
Exactly. And don't let fear stop you. Many learners think, "What if people laugh at me?" Or, "What if I say something wrong?" But here's the truth. Most people admire you for trying. They respect your effort. No one is judging you as much as you think.
That's such a good point. And I want to say this to our listeners. You are capable. You are smart enough to learn English. You are strong enough to overcome challenges. And you already have everything you need to succeed. The only thing left to do is start talking.
Yes. So, our final message to you is, believe in yourself, take action, and never stop learning. English fluency is waiting for you. Go get it.
And we are always here to help. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to practice the spontaneous speaking challenge we did earlier and keep pushing yourself every day.
That's right. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more practical tips and motivation. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, stop thinking, start talking. See you next time.
Bye, everyone. Keep practicing and stay confident.